One Piece's final saga has entered Elbaf, an arc we've been waiting for tens of years, and seemingly right off the bat we were introduced to the arc's villain, Loki. In one of the rawest character introductions in all of One Piece, Oda got us all hyped to see the Straw Hats have to take down the most evil giant on Elbaf. But is Loki really Elbaf's villain? Or is he really even a bad guy? As of chapter 1137, I think enough information has been shown to us to assume that Loki is not the villain in the Elbaf arc, and he's actually a really good guy. That's right, in this video we'll be discussing why Loki is actually a good character, and all the evidence pertaining to those details that we have seen in Elbaf so far. But before we dive into everything, make sure to like and subscribe, and while you're down there, leave a comment on what you think Loki's Devil Fruit is going to be, because I think it's going to be very important for the remainder of Elbaf. So before we explain why Loki is actually a good guy, we need to explain why all of the One Piece fandom assumed he would be the arc's main villain in the first place. What made us all think that Loki was evil? Well, from the get-go, it's very clear that Loki is portrayed as a villain at the start, simply because of what the Giants talk about. They say he's the person who killed King Harold, who was allegedly the greatest king in Elbaf's history, and because he killed King Harold, he stole a legendary Devil Fruit from the royal family and is now incredibly evil. After Loki committed these crimes, he was allegedly captured by Shanks, who we know is very obviously a good guy in the story, and was tied up on the Atom Tree and has forever remained there for 6 years straight. It's no surprise that the One Piece fandom thought Loki was a villain, because these are all characteristics of a villain or an evil person. He was captured by a character we love, he killed a character who was allegedly a great king, and he stole a Devil Fruit to be an evil menace pretty much. So why would he be a good guy in the first place? Well, there's actually 3 primary reasons why I think Loki is a good guy based on what we've seen in Elbaf so far. And the first one is that there's a lot of misdirection happening. It's important to realize that every bit of information we've received about Loki being a villain or an evil person has been through word of mouth. The stories about him and Harold, the stories about the Devil Fruit, the stories about Shanks and Loki, they have all been told to us through other giants in the story. We have not seen any of these events with our own eyes as readers yet, and Oda has not depicted them in the pages. Because of this, I don't think it's a stretch to say that this could be misdirection from the Giants, and Oda's trying to make us believe that Loki is a bad character. On top of that, it wouldn't be the first thing that the Giants are wrong about. We already know that half of them think Nika the Sun God is an evil character who brings destruction. So we already know it's very possible for the Giants to believe in the wrong things and tell the Straw Hats fake information. That doesn't just go for Loki either, it could be the case for King Harold. Who knows, maybe Harold wasn't Elbaf's greatest king, and perhaps he was a very evil person and Loki was actually trying to commit an act of justice in killing Harold, and all the Giants were all misinformed because Harold was taking advantage of them. This actually might be the case. If you look at Mountain Beard Jarl, who's allegedly the oldest giant on Elbaf, the sword in his head, which is a wound he received watching Harold and Loki fight, looks incredibly similar to the sword that Harold is holding in the portrait we see of him in chapter 1137. Now, this could be a reach and a little bit too much speculation on my part, but we know Oda loves his tiny details, so I would just keep that in mind. On to reason number 2, an even stronger reason as to why Loki is probably not an evil character: his interactions with the Celestial Dragons. The world government, and more specifically the Celestial Dragons, are very obviously the primary evil in the story of One Piece. Throughout all 1100 chapters, it has been made incredibly clear to us that this is the primary evil of the entire story, and you cannot get worse than this group of people. And when Loki is approached by exactly those people, these new God's Knights members that we were introduced to this arc, he outright refuses their invitation to join their group because he knows the Celestial Dragons are evil. There are other evil characters in the story who are opposed to Celestial Dragons, for example like Blackbeard, but I don't think Oda would be showing us such a strong opposition to the Celestial Dragons from Loki if it didn't mean something for the reader. I think Oda included this scene for us specifically, without the Straw Hats even present, to show us that Loki has such a strong will against the evil forces of the story. Not only that, some of the lines that Loki drops during this interaction are very similar to Luffy's ideals. Loki refusing to fight to save his friend, and accepting that his pet wolf is going to have to die so that Loki can stand on his ideals, seems pretty similar to the line of thought that Luffy and Zoro share as warriors in the One Piece world. And every time I see Loki tank a hit from these God's Knights members and not retaliate whatsoever, It keeps reminding me of Luffy and Zoro in Jaya when they refuse to fight Bellamy's gang because they know they are above all of that nonsense. I also think it's worth mentioning that whoever Loki is talking to on this Dendenmushi definitely believes that Loki is a good person. This mysterious character tells us straight up that Loki has a tint of niceness in his words underneath all of those curse words, and that he thinks Loki is a genuinely good person. Again, this is another detail I don't think Oda would put into this story for no reason. I think we're getting subtle hints to Loki being a good character. And reason number 3, perhaps the most powerful argument for Loki being a morally good character in the story, is that Luffy is an incredible judge of character. What I mean by that is, we as readers obviously know if a character is morally good or morally bad, because it is clear to us who are the villains and who are the good guys of the story. For example, a character in the One Piece world may think the world government is justice because they're a normal citizen and pirates have been painted bad. But as readers of the story, we know that the world government is evil and pirates are, for the most case, good people. The only character who shares that exact same viewpoint as us readers and knows whether or not a character is good or bad at first glance is Luffy. Throughout the series, Luffy has unquestionably known if a character has bad intentions or good intentions immediately without second thought. There are quite a few examples of this. For example, Luffy immediately is beefing with Blackbeard at their first mention. Luffy thinks Smoker isn't actually a bad guy, even after Smoker's trying to capture him for pretty much the entire series. But the most important example of this is when Luffy meets Zoro, because this moment actually parallels Loki's moment pretty identically. After Zoro is locked up by the Navy and everyone Luffy meets prior to meeting Zoro tells Luffy that Zoro is a bad person, Luffy immediately defects to this principle and says that Zoro is probably a good guy. He goes to meet Zoro, he unlocks Zoro, and they become best friends. It is the exact same scenario with Loki. Loki is locked up, everyone in the arc is telling Luffy Loki's a bad guy, yet Luffy still, for some reason, just knows that Loki is a good person. He exclaims this with no hesitation because he knows whether a character is good or bad morally right from the start because he is our main character and he's supposed to frame the reader's perception of whether a character is good or bad as well. Luffy has so much faith that Loki is a good person that he even goes to get the key to unlock Loki. Now you could make the argument that it is because Loki said he has information about Shanks, but we've seen Luffy understand characters can trick him before. He's very hesitant to let out Crocodile and Impel Down, despite Crocodile making a great point for helping Luffy escape, because Luffy knows Crocodile's a bad person. If Luffy thought Loki was a bad person, he wouldn't blink twice about going to get the key, he would just ignore Loki as a whole. But Luffy thinks Loki is a good character, and that is the #1 argument for Loki being a morally good character in the story. Whether or not Loki will be a good character who ends up helping the Straw Hats, or a good character who just ends up fighting against the Straw Hats villains in the arc is yet to be known, but I think I've made my case for why Loki will not be the primary villain of Elbaf, and he won't be an evil character. Thanks for listening all the way through, and if you agree with me, leave a comment, let me know why. If you disagree with me, also leave a comment, let me know what I missed, and let me know what other videos you would like to see as we delve further into the final saga of One Piece. Until next time.